Hey there everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessica and today I'm going to share with you how I transformed my entryway closet in my farmhouse fixer-upper. This is one of the many projects in this home I will be doing here on my channel, so if you're not following along already, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications so you never miss out on a new video. Alright, so I'm going to get started here by removing the doors on this closet. Now, this closet is right as you walk in my door, and it just like closed everything off with having those doors on there. So I wanted to build something that was more open and airy and fresh and more functional for my family. And the doors, they were falling off the track anyways, and they weren't functioning well, so it just made sense to take the doors off. So I removed those and removed the track at the bottom. And now I'm just gonna clean out the closet, which there wasn't much in it. I didn't really store much in it because I knew this was one of the projects I wanted to start on when we first moved in this home. So after I got everything removed from the closet, I went ahead and took down the rail at the top where you hang your coats on hangers, I guess. And then I'm just going to remove the shelf as well. Just by hammering it out, it was pretty easy to remove. And then I took the boards off the wall that was holding the shelf. And then I also removed the baseboard at the bottom, which it was like tucked inside of the flooring. They didn't remove the baseboards when they did the flooring, and there was gaps and everything. So I needed to come back and fix it anyways. So I went ahead and removed all of the baseboards, which they had super long nails in, which was a little difficult to remove, but it came out in the long run. Now, what I'm gonna do to transform this closet is I'm gonna be using these shiplap, pieces of shiplap. They are tongue and groove nickel gap shiplap that I got from Menards, and you have to buy them per board. They're 8-foot long pieces, and I found that Menards was the best price for them, at least in my area. So I went ahead and purchased them, and I am just gonna go ahead and place half of the boards together, like tongue and groove them without nailing them to the wall first. So that way it just made it a little bit easier for me to get each board in the next groove, if that makes sense. And then these boards fit perfectly. I didn't have to cut them down to size because my ceilings are 8 feet tall, and the at the bottom, after I removed the baseboards, because there was that gap between the baseboard and the new flooring, it actually went all the way down to the subfloor. So I could snugly fit the shiplap in between the wood flooring and then up to the ceiling, and it fit perfectly. So I lucked out on that, not having to trim off any length. But if you had flooring, obviously you probably would have to trim off some length. So I went ahead and just continued on after I nailed the pieces of shiplap into place. I just used my nail gun. I'll link that in the description box because that nail gun has saved my life on so many projects. It's super easy to use, and it just makes life so much easier. So anyways, I also lucked out by having the exact amount, and I didn't have to rip a piece of shiplap either. So that worked out perfectly. The spacing was just perfect. So I just did that back wall in the shiplap, and I nailed it all up with my nail gun, and then I came back with the baseboards, and I went ahead and reattached the baseboards to the bottom there with my nail gun. Now with the new shelf, I'm gonna basically keep it in the same spot, but I'm gonna use my own wood for it. So I went ahead and cut a 1x2 to the length of the back wall there, and I made sure that I used a level to level it out. And then I nailed it with my nail gun to each corner there because I knew that there were studs in that corner. And then I was like, where are the rest of the studs? So I ended up using the old board, and the nail holes that were in that old board were in studs in the wall. Since I didn't mark them on my shiplap, I used that old board to line it up with my new board and put a nail through that so that it would go through the studs, if that all makes sense. So, you know, sometimes you just gotta do things backwards if you forget in the beginning, because I didn't have to take everything apart. So I got that up and it was really sturdy, and then I put 2 more smaller pieces on each side of the closet, and I nailed those into each stud on those sides of the closet. Lastly, I installed the shelf on top of the boards. It's just a 1x16 board that I cut the length of the closet, and then I nailed it into those pieces that I nailed to the wall. And then now for the bottom, I wanted to do a floating bench very badly in this closet. And if you follow me over on Instagram or Facebook and you follow my stories, if not, check me out. It's at Jessica Lynn at home. But if, you follow me, you know that the first time I did this bench, it wasn't in the studs and it was actually smaller in depth wise. And my husband went to sit on it and to test it out, and it broke. And it just didn't work out, so I had to redo it. So this right here is the result of me redoing it. Basically what I did was take 2x4s and I installed those on each side of the closet, and I knew that there were studs in each corner of the closet. So I made sure to screw the 2x4s into those studs, and then that made those pieces really secure. Now the next piece I did was the back 2x4, and I just made sure to cut it so that it was a snug fit, and then I installed screws into the studs. Again, I had to use that old board to find the studs, but it worked out fine. I installed a bunch of screws there, and then also into the corners, and then I also, to make sure it was really secure, I used these L brackets, and I screwed that into each corner of the 2x4s. So that way it was really secure and it wasn't going to break. So the next thing I needed to do though, before I installed the front piece, was I had trim on the inside of my closet. So what I needed to do was pop that trim out, because I knew that there is there is a 2x4 or a stud in the wall behind those pieces of molding. So that is what I needed to do to secure that front piece on. So I made sure I fit that snugly, and then I just used some screws again and screwed the 2x4s into each stud on each side of the closet in the front there. And then I saved my molding for later on, because I'm going to recut that and use that on the inside of the closet. Next, I am going to go ahead and install support beams or brackets, or however you want to look at it, inside the bench. So what I did for that was I cut 2x4s to the length inside the bench, and then I used joist hangers to install the 2x4s inside there. So you just screw them into the back and front side of the 2x4, and then the smaller 2x4 sits inside those joist hangers. And that's gonna help it really stabilize and be sturdy, so that way it's not going anywhere, because I don't want anybody to bust through this bench and get hurt or anything like that. So this time it's really sturdy. All right, now that it's tested out and it's sturdy, I'm gonna go ahead and put the top on. And for the top, I had already purchased, when I had my idea for this in the beginning, for the depth to be smaller, I'd already purchased a 1x18 piece of wood to be the top. So I had a gap in the back there, and I just used a 1x2 to fill that gap. So it didn't bother me. I don't mind the gap, but you could use plywood and cut that to your size if you wanted to. I just didn't want to have to buy another piece of wood since I already had this. And then to cover the front, I just used a 1x6 board and nailed that right to the front 2x4. And I nailed the top of the wood down as well to the 2x4s underneath. Now to fill my gaps, because I did have gaps from the 2x6 and then gaps in the back, I used this plastic wood, and it dries really quickly, so you have to work really fast with it. But I just smoothed it all on the cracks and gaps so that way everything would be covered, and then it dries fairly quickly, like I said. So I was ready to sand it within like an hour. So I came back, and my hand sander, I didn't have any sandpaper for it, so I ended up having to sand all this down by hand, but that's okay. I got to work, put some elbow grease in it, and sanded it all smooth, and sanded the edges and the top piece as well to prep it for stain. Now before I stain it and paint, I need to cover up the edges around the shiplap and just make sure that those are all filled in. So I just picked up some molding at, I think it was Lowe's or Home Depot, one or the other, and I just cut it to size and then installed it with my nail gun, just all around the edges and the top of the shiplap. And don't worry about the gaps from that, because I came in and I filled those gaps with some caulking and made sure that I filled just every little nook and cranny with caulking that was going to be painted, so that way it would look like a cohesive piece. Now I can go ahead and stain the bench. So for the stain that I used, it was a special walnut, and I love this color because it's just a lighter stain, and it really just blends with my floor and the rest of the woodwork that goes in my house. And I didn't want something dark, but you could stain it whatever color you'd like. And I just did one coat of stain over it, and then I did a coat of polyurethane to protect it. The next thing I did was take the molding that I took off on the inside of the closet, and I just cut that to the new size, cut it into two pieces, one for the top and nailed it in, and then one underneath the bench too and nailed it in. And then I used some quarter round to cover up the gaps from the floor and the baseboards. Now I'm just going to go ahead and give everything a coat of paint except for the bench. I painted the shelf and the shiplap and the walls all in white, and the white I used was just a plain old white that I just got off the shelf at Home Depot. I didn't have it mixed or anything. It was in the finished satin. I just wanted to make it easy, and then that way if I ever need to touch it up or anything like that, it's just white right off the shelf, so I already know. So I just gave everything a couple coats of paint and let that dry, and then once everything was dry, I came and installed my hooks underneath the shelf. I got these hooks off of Amazon. I'll leave them linked in the description box below. I love them. They are perfect for this closet. Get 6 in a pack. I used 5 of them, and this is great because when company comes over, they can just hang up their coat and their purse or whatever they have, and it's just right when they walk in the door instead of having to put it in a closet or hanging it up on the back of a chair. And then the last thing I did was add these little storage bins to the top shelf here. I also got those on Amazon. I'll leave them linked, and that holds our hats and gloves and things like that. Thank you guys so much for watching today. Make sure you hit all those buttons, subscribe, like, share, ring the bell, and follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.